Small Stories from Life Part 28. Here is the first story, The Life of the Lonely Juke. Once upon a time, in a peaceful land in Europe, there lived a powerful Juke in an ancient castle. Since his youth, he had longed to possess everything that he considered the key to happiness: lavish parties, glittering treasures, and immense fame. Every day, he ordered the construction of magnificent gardens, held banquets that lasted every night, and invited distinguished guests from all over. But when the lights went out, the castle became empty and cold, and he was immersed in a nameless loneliness. Although he possessed everything that many people desired, he always felt empty, as if happiness was just a flickering shadow, never to be grasped. And then, old age came with gray hair and heavy steps, but his soul still wreathed in dissatisfaction and regret. One winter night, the Duke sat by the fireplace, looking at the flickering fire and thinking about the years gone by. At that moment, an old servant entered with a cup of hot tea. Gently placing it beside him without saying a word, that gesture, seemingly simple and small, brought a strange warmth to the Duke's heart. He looked up at the servant with a surprised look. "Why do you always seem so carefree and happy, while I, with all my power and wealth, cannot have that?" The servant smiled and replied, "Sir, I have long realized that happiness does not lie in possessing much or little, but in being content with what I have. I enjoy the joy of completing my work and feel happy when I sit under this roof, where it is warm and peaceful. Sometimes, simplicity is the secret of happiness." The Duke was silent, thinking for a long time. From that day on, he no longer sought lavish parties or pursued frivolous fame. He began to walk around the castle every morning, listening to the birds singing on the flower bushes that he had never noticed before. He chatted with the servants, cooked simple meals, and watched the sunset from the window of his small room. Although each moment was short, he felt the peace and serenity that he had missed all his life. Lesson: life is not a race to win happiness. Happiness is actually present in every moment we know how to feel and appreciate the simple things around us. When we stop searching, stop longing for some distant happiness, then we will find true happiness right in our own souls.
Followed by the second story, The Greedy Lion and the Great Trick. On a hot summer day, the heat made the lion's stomach growl and his mood became unpleasant. After walking all day without finding anything worthwhile, the lion grumbled in frustration, "I am the king of the jungle, and yet I have to hunt for such small prey." While he was lamenting, the lion suddenly saw a small rabbit hopping near the bushes. "Ah, at least you can help me with my hunger," the lion smiled and prepared to pounce. But just as he was about to grab the rabbit, a large, muscular deer slowly walked over, grazing. The lion's eyes lit up as if he had just found a treasure. "Oh my, how easy is this? Let this little rabbit go, I will have a great feast." The rabbit was no pushover either. Hearing the rustling sound, it quickly winked meaningfully at the lion. "It's up to you, I can't fill my stomach like a lord like you. Go catch that big deer." Then, as if it had been given a reprieve, it jumped into the bushes and disappeared. The lion was so engrossed in admiring the deer that he didn't even bother with the rabbit. He immediately braced himself to chase after it, but unexpectedly the deer only glanced at him once and then shot off like a rocket, leaving a cloud of dust in front of the lion. "Damn it, you dare to fool me!" the lion roared, rushing after him. But after a few steps, he realized he was wrong. The deer was as fast as the wind, and the hungry stomach made the lion's legs heavy, making it difficult to breathe. Despite his best efforts, the deer soon disappeared into the deep forest. At this moment, the lion turned back, thinking, "Well, at least the rabbit is still there." But when it returned to the same place, the rabbit had long since disappeared, leaving the lion standing there sighing, his face bewildered. He seemed to have been tricked spectacularly.
The lion crouched down, looked around, and muttered to himself, "Lost both the lead and the net. If I had known, I would have grabbed the rabbit first." Lesson: don't let greed blind you. Sometimes, chasing bigger things without knowing how to take advantage of what you have will only lead to losing everything. And remember, if someone winks at you and tells you to go for something bigger, It may just be a cunning trap to make you ignore the precious things right in front of you.
Followed by the third story, The Pen and the Notebook. There was a young couple who loved each other very much. The wife was a new writer, and she often used an old fountain pen to write. One day, the pen tip broke, making it impossible for her to continue writing. She whispered to her husband, "Honey, I need a new pen to finish my first book. The old one is broken." The husband looked at his wife with pity, because he knew that their finances were very tight. He hesitantly replied, "I'm sorry, but I don't have enough money right now to buy the new notebook I need. Can you wait a little longer?" The wife smiled and patted her husband's hand. "It's okay, I understand." But that night, she kept thinking about what he had said. She decided to do something for him. The next morning, the wife quietly sold her old typewriter for a cheap price. Although she knew it would take more effort to write by hand, she still happily took the money to the stationery store and bought her husband a beautiful notebook. Meanwhile, the husband did not sit still. He quietly sold his favorite watch and used the money to buy his wife a shiny new fountain pen. "You will be so happy," he thought to himself. That evening, both of them were excitedly holding in their hands the special gifts they had prepared for each other. The husband smiled, holding out the new pen. "I sold my watch to buy you this pen. I hope you will use it to complete your first book." The wife was silent for a moment, then slowly opened her gift box. "And I sold my typewriter to buy you this notebook. I know you need it to record creative ideas for your upcoming project." Both of them laughed in emotion, but could not help but feel awkward about this situation. The pen has no notebook to write on, and the notebook has no pen to write on. But that doesn't matter, because what they give each other is unconditional love and sacrifice. Lesson: love is not measured by gifts or material things, but by understanding and being willing to give up what you love for the happiness of the other person. Sometimes seemingly silly actions help us realize the true value of love is sharing and sacrificing each other.
By the fourth story, The Bicycle and the Daring Contract. In a small European town where the gentle breeze carries the scent of freshly baked bread, there lives a guy named Charles with a passionate heart and a little bit of impulsiveness. One afternoon, Charles happens to see a beautiful sports bike in a shop. The bike sparkles in the sunlight, as if whispering, "Take me home and go on an adventure." Charles imagines himself gliding on that bike, his hair flying in the wind, his feet pedaling briskly on the roads covered with yellow leaves. But when he sees the price tag, €2,000, Charles swallows. He suddenly remembers that his salary is only about €500 a month. But Charles still can't take his eyes off the bike, so he decides to run home to ask his wife, "Emily, I found something that makes my heart flutter. Can we buy that bike?" Charles winked like a student who got a bad grade but still tried to act spoiled. Emily raised her eyebrows at her husband, her face expressionless. "Are you crazy? That car is more expensive than the rent. If you buy it, maybe we should start thinking about divorce soon." Charles was devastated, as if a bucket of cold water had been poured on him. But that night, lying awake, he thought of his best friend Marcus's advice: "Charles, if you don't dare to take risks when it comes to what you love, you will never achieve anything in life. Just buy it, work hard, and you will pay off all your debts." The next morning, Charles put on his shoes, determined to withdraw all his small savings, and buy that car. He brought the car home sweating like a shower, but Charles had no time to panic. That very night, he started doing all sorts of extra work: waiter, newspaper delivery, tutoring. Just like that, Charles was busy working hard to pay off his debt, determined not to give Emily an excuse to kick him out of the house. Surprisingly, in just 3 months, Charles had paid off all his debt. Emily was still there. Not only did she not leave but also smiled proudly. "You're not joking, are you? I didn't expect your recklessness to have such a result," she said, then led Charles to the car shop. "Charles, I think it's time for us to change that old car for a new one." What do you think if we buy it on installments? Charles was startled, looking at his wife as if she were from another planet. Are you crazy? You just paid off your bicycle debt and now you're buying a car. He stammered, but Emily's determined gaze reminded Charles of the last time. Okay, I'll take the risk. Charles thought to himself, immediately signing the contract while his heart was still trembling. And so, once again, the guy ventured into a new bet. Thanks to the car, Charles found a better job, took Emily on trips everywhere, and their income gradually improved. Soon, they paid off the car loan and moved into a beautiful new house. One morning, Charles stood by the window, looking at the old bicycle and the shiny car. And suddenly laughed, Emily, why don't we take another risk and buy a vacation home in Tuscany? Emily glared at him, her lips curling up in humor. Charles, take a risk in moderation. Wait until I finish shopping for my wine collection and then we'll talk about it, my risk-taking husband. Lesson: life sometimes requires bold risks, but remember to keep a little bit of reason. Taking the right risks and daring to pursue what you love will help you overcome barriers and conquer seemingly impossible things. But be careful, overdo it and you might make a fool of yourself.
Followed by the fifth story, The Traveler and the Sparrow. One autumn afternoon, a traveler passed by a stream in a deserted forest. Suddenly, he saw a small sparrow struggling in the cold water. Without hesitation, he bent down and tried to pick the bird up. But as soon as he touched it, the bird panicked and flapped its wings wildly, scratching his hand. The traveler ignored the small scratch and bent down to save it again. This time, the bird panicked even more, biting his hand harder than before, causing blood to ooze out. A passerby saw this and quickly stopped him. It will only hurt you. Why would you try to save such an ungrateful animal? The traveler looked up and smiled slightly. Yes, defensive reaction is its instinct when facing danger. But kindness and goodwill to help the weak are my instincts. I cannot lose my good nature because of its defensive instinct. Finally, the patient traveler tried to be gentler, placing his hand under the bird's body, letting it confidently land on his hand. When it felt safe, the bird stopped struggling and let him bring it safely to shore. The bird landed on a tree branch, chirped loudly as a thank you, and flew away. The passerby saw this and was silent in thought. He realized that kindness and perseverance in the face of difficulties were not because he wanted to be rewarded, but because it was a manifestation of perseverance in maintaining one's beliefs and self-worth, regardless of the words or actions of those around. Lesson: in life, there are many challenges, temptations, and comments from others that make us waver. However, it is important to stay firm and not let yourself change according to circumstances or the thoughts of others. If you give up the good in yourself just because of the negative reactions of others, you will lose your true nature. Stay true to your values and principles, because that is the strength that will help you overcome all adversities. Thanks for listening. Hello and see you again in Small Stories of Life Part 29.